This is Dolany TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome to what I hope is the final edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion for this weekend. So all I'm going to ask you right now is if you're tuning in and you've enjoyed having me back full force kind of for a weekend here in July ahead of free agent frenzy, what I'm asking you to do is leave a thumbs up, consider subscribing. This is the first time I've asked all weekend, I promise. And let's rip right into it. You saw in the title, this weekend, this next few days is going to be absolute banana town. And here we find ourselves talking about David Perron possibly coming back to the Oilers. We were talking about Cam Talbot over on Clemhawks today. If you haven't found that video, go find it. However, we're talking now David Perron might be a possibility to return to the Edmonton Oilers. We all know things did not end up so well last time round. We did get a first round pick. Things, it wasn't bad go. But problem is, now you're talking about re-adding a guy who has been here, done that once before. And like I said with Talbot, hey, it's a known commodity. I don't know who remembers David Perron from his time in Edmonton on this roster other than Ryan Nugent-Hopkins at this point. But somebody in the locker room knows him, so that's a thing you have to look forward to at this point, is the fact that, yeah, you know what, David Perron, possibility for the Oilers, according to Chris Johnston of, I don't even know where he's operating out of nowadays, to be honest with you, but, right, he's a possibility for the Edmonton Oilers, according to his UFA draft board on North Star Bets or something, and yeah, right, a guy who spent 2 seasons in Edmonton, went over in 13-14 and 14-15, half point per game in his final year, 57 points, almost 30 goals in 2013-14. Of course, those 2 teams that we just mentioned were complete dumpster fires and have led us to be right where we are now, whether it be the Leon Draisaitl draft or the Connor McDavid draft, both that followed those years in Edmonton with Dave Perron. So even if you didn't like the guy when he was here, maybe something to thank him for and now fold him into what he created, and why not? So for David Perron, what you really need to know here over the past several years is he has been consistent with the St. Louis Blues and Vegas Golden Knights. So he went to St. Louis, or went from St. Louis in 16-17 where he had 46 points to Vegas where he had 66 points in 70 games, then went back to St. Louis 46 and 57 in 18-19, 60 and 71 in 19-20, and then 58 and 56 last year, more than a point per game, and the only time he has reached that ledger in his career, and then 57 in 67 this past season. We're talking about a guy who, if he had a 31 goal season after signing in Edmonton this year, he would reach 300 career goals in just over 1,000 games. That ain't bad for a guy that, right, realistically early on in his career, he was pretty good, but a guy who realistically has never topped 30 goals in his career, and a guy that's a career normal, like 21 goal career production average kind of guy. So, right, it's one of those things of, you know what, a possibility, and I guess this is a follow-up according to the tweet I saw from Carmen Gill, a follow-up to Giroux rumors that we talked about last week, where Giroux was pretty heavily interested from the Oilers' perspective, and now it's more of a distant possibility, but Perron is a possibility now for the Oilers, and this is what I'm talking about. I started this off by saying welcome to Banana Town, because this is where it's just all silliness at this point for the Edmonton Oilers, is everybody's an option. You have $20 million in cap space. I don't know the numbers in the NHL, but I doubt more than 10 teams in the NHL have $20 million in cap space with no one pressing they need to re-sign other than a couple of mid-tier RFAs, which is what Puljujarvi and Yamamoto are. You're not talking about an RFA like Matthew Tkachuk who demands $9 million. You're talking about Puljujarvi, high end gets 5, Yamo high end gets 3.5, right? We're not talking about guys that are going to break the bank if you choose to re-sign them, because Puljujarvi, who knows, but you get where we're going. We have one defenseman we need to sign in Brett Kulak for anywhere between 2.5 to 3.5. There's a lot that the Oilers aren't hurting on in terms of having to spend cap. Yes, you need to spend a goalie, but $6 million for a goalie ain't going to break the bank with $20 million. So you spend 3.5 on Yamo and Puljujarvi. That's 7. That's 13. You spend 3.5 on Kulak, that's 16.5. Guess what? You got 3.5 to spend on David Perron, and if he's going to be a possibility for Edmonton, I gotta think that he's going to be that kind of guy at 3.5. I don't know why you'd go out there and spend a whole bunch of money on David Perron, but again, prove me wrong, I guess, is what I always challenge Mr. Ken Holland to do. But you look at this right here for David Perron coming off of this past season, a $4 million contract, right? Okay, well, let's get into the player that is David Perron. He's 34 years old. Same thing as Claude Giroux, right? If this guy's demanding more than 3.5, we got a problem. So that's where we get a little bit excited, is to hear a name like that, a guy that has been in Edmonton, done and dusted it, even for $3.5 million. If you go out there and score me 45 points, I am more than happy. Honestly, if you got 45 points from Puljujarvi, Yamamoto, and a guy like David Perron, the Oilers are the top scoring NHL team next season. 100% guaranteed, especially if you find yourself an even more elite winger somewhere in the mix somehow, some way. But as we broke it down, David Perron's probably where you're spending all your cash. If not, you're adding a guy like, yes, Puljujarvi and getting the same production, and away you go. But there you go. That's what we're sitting on here. Is I'm not trying to make any must-sign big cases here. I'm not trying to show you exactly why it has to go. I'm just telling you, fan to fan, straight across on paper, why someone like me would be interested in the guys I've talked about. And this is a move, right? Like, Ken Holland's got limitless options, and that's what I like about this, is David Perron being on the radar, a guy that's coming off of consecutive good seasons, and isn't at that 37-38 cliff yet. That's what I'm liking to see. And even, okay, so all right, he's going to fall off a cliff. He walks in, shakes Ken Holland's hand, and says, "Hello, sir. I am going to fall off a cliff by game number 10 of the season with your team." I think Ken Holland signs him to a reasonable deal. I don't see in any way where Ken Holland's overpaying David Perron, because he's not a guy you're signing more than 2 years. You're not even signing him 1 year. Probably after learning with Kyle Turris, you sign him 1 year and see what happens, because Bourgault, Holloway, right? Tullio. You've got limitless options coming up. Where does Benson fit? There's too many names to name here in the midst of all this, where you have to look at it and bang, 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 bang for the Oilers. Guess what? It's simply put that you've got a lot of guys coming up. You don't want a 36-year-old been there, done that guy hanging around at big contract numbers come next season. So that's where, like, season after next, sorry. So you get where I'm going with that. That is pretty much the end all be all. All I care with this one is that it's a possibility, and secondarily, there isn't an option for a second year. It's 1 year, one and done. We'll reevaluate at the end of next year, because honestly, you lose a 45-35-year-old guy, that's not a team changer by any means. Like, I mean, yeah, sure, if he comes in and scores 95 points on Connor McDavid's wing, well, you probably consider re-signing him. But it's similar to James Neal. 1 season of James Neal, good to go. Everything after that, oh my goodness. So that's where we go, right? Just calm. Just go in there, reasonable expectations, know what you're getting for what you're paying, and that's all that matters. Folks, I'm Tyson. This is Stolany TV. Like I said, if you've enjoyed the content this weekend, this is my final video of the night. Let me know. Leave a like on the video. Let me know what you've liked, what you've disliked. Trust me, you guys have let me know what you've disliked, but that's okay. Let me know in case I've missed anything this weekend that maybe you would have even liked me to cover, because you never know if it pops back up in discussion tomorrow or Tuesday. Maybe it's worth talking about here on YouTube and trying to stir the pot a little bit more, because let me tell you, I think as an Edmonton Oilers fan, if you're tuning into this and you saw me all weekend and now you're just tuning in, I've been unavoidable to an extent this weekend because of that Patrick Kane video yesterday. Not to toot my own horn, it's just literally I'm looking at the analytics and like I have like 50,000 impressions or something on the Patrick Kane video, so Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot in terms of Dolly TV. Anyway, folks, I'm up on out of here.